Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. Good morning, depending on where you are in the world. If you're here with me, go ahead and say hi. If you're watching the replay, then hashtag replay. Just let me know that you're here. Today, I want to be talking about the one thing that I did that led me to overcoming codependency, love addiction, toxic relationships, depression, anxiety, and building a six-figure business in a very short period of time. So I'm just getting situated with the comments. Cool. So a lot of the things that I see as a relationship coach, coaching for since 2019, is I see a lot of people saying what they want, but actually not able to get there. And that's a lot of the times when women come to me. It's when they say that they've tried all the things, they've done the meditations, they've done the journaling, they've done the self-care and all of those things. And they're like, I still can't figure out why I'm struggling with breaking this toxic relationship cycle, or why I haven't gotten to this next level in my life yet. And the biggest thing that I would say is, like, it all comes down to our willingness. You know, our subconscious, our ego likes to keep us small. It likes to keep us in the same place that we've always been. And so every time you try to get out of that comfort zone, what happens is you try, and the ego self-sabotages in some way, or it doesn't happen right away. You get beat down, and you notice that all the motivation that you've had in the beginning begins to go away. So you try, you get shut down. It causes some doubt within you, within your heart, right? Then you try again, and you still got that motivation. You're like, all right, I'm going to try again. And then you try again, you got knocked down, and more doubt, that doubt begins to grow within you, and that continues to happen, right? And so a lot of the things that I see, I talked about this in the High Value Woman workshop the other day. That was just such an incredible 4-day workshop that we did, and it was very transformational. It was very deep, and a lot of what I heard was that it allowed people to really start to overcome that rejection and abandonment wound, and build a lot of confidence, and give them motivation and inspiration, which is really a place where we tend to get stuck. Is like, we'll feel that motivation, and then we stop. Life gets in the way. And so that's a lot of what I see with the women that come to me. And the biggest thing that I did when I was in my healing process, like, I did all the same things as everyone else, where I would get some motivation, and then I would fall off. I would get some motivation, and then I'd fall off. And motivation is so circumstantial. It's like, how many of us, go ahead and type in the comments, like, how many of you have gotten really excited to start something, and you start it, like, whether it's a diet, whether it's a workout routine, whether it's your healing journey, and you get really, really excited. And then after a little bit, you notice that you fall off, and you get to a point where it's just like, I'll do it tomorrow. Does it really matter? Does it really matter if I do this? Is this one time going to make a difference? Because that was me for so many years. I was working on self-development for, I want to say, a few years before I even made some extreme shifts. And the thing is, like, we want these incredible results, right? We want radical shift in our life. We want radical shift in our relationships. We want to stop attracting toxic and abusive relationships. We want to stop attracting emotionally unavailable people. We want to stop dealing with our anxious attachment, and trying to manage the symptoms of our depression or anxiety. But the thing is, that's a very radical change. All of the things that you've mentioned have been things, or that I just mentioned, have been things that you've been doing for your entire life. Like, it's been a coping mechanism for you for this whole entire time. And so those few little changes that you're making, they're not big enough to make radical change in an accelerated timeline. So people think that after a week of doing meditation, a month of doing meditation, that's going to make a difference. It's going to be more about the actions that you're taking. Like, this is going to this might ruffle some feathers, but your feeling, when it comes to your healing, your feelings don't matter. And I say that in a way of saying, we're not going to feel like it a lot of the time. We're not going to feel like, we're not going to feel ready to do the hard stuff. We're not going to feel ready to get uncomfortable. We're not going to feel ready to stop the behaviors that have been such a coping mechanism for us. And so my biggest thing is like, I've been relentless about my healing. I've been relentless about building my business. I've been unreasonable for the last 4 years because it's mattered to me. And when I was unreasonable, when I had literally no other choice, when we make a decision, that word decide, side means to kill off. So when you're deciding, you're literally cutting off all other option. If you're saying, I'm going to go all into my healing, you got to go all into your healing. When you're saying that I'm done with the toxic relationship cycle, that means you got to stop giving in, overextending, self-abandoning, not listening to your intuition, not going out on the date with the person that your intuition is telling you no to set boundaries with those people that have constantly been taking from you. Like, that's the hard work all day long. What I see is like, they're like, well, I've done the inner child work. I've done this, I've done that. I do the meditations, I regulate my nervous system. But the actions, the biggest missing piece is the actual actions that is going to take you from where you are to where you want to be. Like, our actions need to be from our highest self, because, and then our feelings and our thoughts will follow suit. Our actions is what bakes it all in. And so when I was quitting alcohol, when I was walking away from toxic relationships, when I was overcoming my codependency and love addiction, I started taking the action immediately. And that's the thing. I wasn't ready to quit drinking. How many times did I say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, I'll do it when I feel like I'm ready to do it? And then finally I was like, I'm never going to be ready. I'm not going to be ready to do this thing. I'm just going to have to be uncomfortable. The only we mostly change when the uncomfortableness of staying where we are outweighs the uncomfortableness of coming to a new place, if that makes sense. And so a lot of the time we have to hit rock bottom, and you're like, okay, I think I hit rock bottom, but then you still make the same decisions, you still have the same feelings, you're still taking the same action. You didn't hit the rock bottom that's actually going to change you. And the thing is, you don't have to wait for that. Like, I was always that person that like had to burn down everything in my life in order to make a change. And I'm not that person anymore. You don't have to be that person where you are burning down everything in your life, hitting rock bottom, hitting rock bottom, hitting rock bottom in order to change. Like, you can do that now, because we have to be, again, we have to be unreasonable about the things that we want. We have to go out, we have to go after the things that we want. And it's kind of like I use this analogy in the High Value Woman the other day. It's like you're a fly hitting your head against the window, trying to get out, trying to get out, trying to get out, trying to get out. And nothing's changing, nothing's making a difference. And so you actually have to, if something didn't work for you once, if something didn't work for you 10 times, if something didn't work for you 20 times, you've got to get creative. You've got to find a way to actually make it work for you. And that's the biggest thing that I see as a disconnect in the women that come to me, the women that have success in healing and the women that don't, is the action isn't there, the relentlessness isn't there, the unreasonableness isn't there. It's kind of like they're apathetic about it. And I've been this way in my life too. It's like, you get to a point where you're like, this is just good enough. This is good enough. So I'm not going to try to move forward. This is good enough. So maybe when that next difficult thing happens, I'll move forward. And like I said, like I've been that way in my life as well, until again, I've hit rock bottom, and it's forced me to get outside of that comfort zone, because being where I was more uncomfortable than trying something new. And so when we try to do this, our ego will try to get the best of us. It'll tell us that it's not working. It'll tell us that we should give up. It'll tell us that it's just not in the cards for us, or it'll happen someday. It'll happen when it's meant to happen. And I see that a lot in the spiritual community as well. It's like, well, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And I think that that is, to an extent, kind of a lazy excuse to not go after what you want. There is a point of, I'm letting go and letting God. I'm gonna detach from the outcome and let whatever's meant for me come to me, but you also have to act in alignment with that thing that you're wanting. You're actually having to act in alignment with the relationship that you say that you want. When women are, when you hear people say like, well, if it's meant to be, it'll be, and they're wanting this relationship, but they're also still abandoning themselves, and they're engaging with the emotionally unavailable men, they're still texting their exes, they're still sleeping with people that don't value them, it's not going to happen. Like it's just not, because you're not an energetic match for it at that point. And so the thing is, like, we have to continue to take this action. We have to continue to find out creative ways to get to the solution, even when it's difficult, even when you want to give up. When you want to give up is when you keep trying. That's the most important time to continue to try, because that's when you're on the brink of something amazing. Thomas Edison said he failed 10 times before, or he failed 10,000 times before he actually made the light bulb. And so what he said about that was, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Like, imagine if we had that kind of mindset when we were going into our healing, instead of saying, well, I tried the meditation, I tried this coach, I tried that course, I tried whatever it is, that it didn't work. So therefore it's not in the cards for me. Therefore I failed. Therefore I'm not going to try again. Therefore I'm not going to put my whole heart into it, just in case I get disappointed. What do you think that's going to do? But if we came from a place of, I am putting my whole heart into this, and whether I get disappointed or not, I'm going to be okay. And that's, something that we don't put our whole heart into our healing. We don't give it our best. And when we don't give something our best, it's because we're trying to avoid disappointment. We're trying to avoid the failure. And so we would rather fail and give it some of our effort and be like, well, like, that sucked, that was painful, I gave it some of my effort. But imagine if you gave it your whole heart and you gave it everything you got to heal and change and move forward, and then you failed. Like, that would be the most painful thing in the world. And that's why we don't do it. But the thing is, we have to be okay with that disappointment. We have to be okay with that perceived failure. Because if we're not, then we're going to live this mediocre life. We're going to live this life that's just about being good enough. Just good enough. Not amazing, not pleasurable, not intoxicating, not amazing, not on fire about it. All it's going to be is good enough, mediocre. And I know that that's not the way we want to live, but it's better in our ego, it's better for us to be just good enough and not get too far outside the comfort zone, not get too uncomfortable in our old patterns, but just good enough. And I know that that's not the way that people want to live, but it's kind of what they're used to. And so they're stuck in this level of comfort, even though they say they want to change. And is that really the way that you want to look back on your life in hindsight? When I think about all the time, one thing that gets me so emotional and gets me so upset is I look back on the time that I've wasted. I look back on the people that I used to spend time with and the things that I cared about. And none of it even matters now. And I wasted so much time that I could have been building my relationship with my daughter. I could have been putting that energy into myself, into making new friends, into deepening my friendships, into creating something in my life. But instead, what I did was I wasted so much time trying to get people to choose me, to pick me, to prove my worthiness. And I wasted most of my time doing that. I was mostly in survival mode. To be honest, I can't even remember a lot of my daughter's younger years. I can't remember pretty much anything about high school. I can't remember a lot about my early 20s or my childhood. And it's because I was so much in survival mode. And, to some extent, I've been able to retrieve some of that stuff through the healing work that I do. But when I think about it, it's like I missed so much. I was on autopilot. I was in survival mode. I wasn't really absorbing the life that I was living. And so that's why now I'm so adamant about living in a way that I can look back on and I can say, I'm so glad that I showed up in my life like this. I'm so glad that I did it this way. I'm so glad that I removed that person from my life and that person from my life, and that I built the connection with that person, and that I spend so much time with my daughter. That's the way that I want to live, because I know how much time I've wasted. And I see people that are well into their, 60s and 70s that are still in that state of survival mode, where they're not living to their fullest potential, where they're still engaging in the behaviors that are harmful to them. And then you look back on your life and you're like, why the fuck did I waste so much time with those people? Why did I put up with that? Why did I tolerate that for so long? And then we live a life full of regret. And then we're stuck in that loop. So what got me to this place was not giving up, was not being apathetic about my healing. I gave it my all. And through giving it my all and being consistent, I overcame love addiction, codependency, toxic relationships. I overcame addiction to pills and alcohol. I overcame depression. I overcame anxiety, disorganized attachment, all of the things. I overcame that because I was so relentless about my healing. I gave it my all. I put my whole heart into my healing. And I was like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But I took the actions that I needed to take. I didn't just think about it. I didn't just do some of the things. I didn't just dip my toe in. And like I said, I did do that for a while until I realized that that wasn't the way. You don't want to just dip your toe into your healing. You're going to do the reason why my clients get such great results, and the reason I've had such great results in my life, is because there's consistency. There's the thought that's aligned with the feeling, that's aligned with the action. But a lot of the times we have to have the action go first so that our thoughts and our feelings can catch up. Because if you're thinking about setting boundaries, you're thinking about setting boundaries, you're thinking about the feeling that you'll have when you set those boundaries, you're waiting for that feeling to show up of feeling confident, and then you'll set the boundary. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes you have to set the boundary and feel the fear and do it anyway. Sometimes you have to make the investment, you feel the fear, you do it anyway, and then you show up. And so my clients have gotten such great results because we continue to align their thoughts, their feelings, and their actions. They're not just doing the internal subconscious work, they're actually changing their behaviors. And they're doing it in a way that what they've been able to do in 3 to 6 months is more than they've been able to accomplish in years in therapy. And I can say that for myself too. I went to therapy for so many years with just ruminating on the issues that I was having, ruminating on the issues that I was having, ruminating on the issues that I was having. Every time I went to therapy, it was like I was just trying to put out a fire. That's no way to live. You can't just go there, try to put out a fire, and then once you're done, you feel pretty okay in the therapy session, and then you revert right back to old behavior in between the next therapy session. And I also see people, they're like, well, I go to therapy maybe once a month, or I do this thing once a month. I get Reiki once a month. I go to the sound healing once a month. Or maybe they do it a couple times a month, but that's not enough. It's not enough if you want to have radical change in your healing, radical change in your life, radical healing in your relationship patterns. That is not enough. We think 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And if we're thinking the same thoughts that we had the day before, we're going to continue to live the same life that we've always lived. So you need to be having consistent, constant thought change patterns. Consistently changing your thoughts, consistently changing your feelings, consistently changing the behaviors. So that's, again, why my clients have had such success in such a short period of time, because they're getting that constant mindset shift, constant pattern shift, constant change in behavior. Anytime something comes up for them, they're like, hey, Morgan, this is coming up for me. What can we do about this? Like, I'm very action oriented. And there's a time for compassion, there's a time to lean back, there's a time to absorb, there's a time to just, you know, absorb the information and whatnot. But there's also a time to be relentless about your healing and do. And when you're in these stages of really trying to radically change your life, yes, you do have to do that. You know, there's not much room for excuses when you have support constantly and when you're changing things in your life constantly. And so there was a conversation that I had with my daughter the other day, and it was all about, we were talking about her dad and how he passed away, and he struggled with depression and he committed suicide and he struggled with addiction. And so I told her that, he dropped out of school, he dropped out of hockey. He was a really amazing hockey player. And, he lost the thing that created community, that gave him structure, that gave him purpose. And that exacerbated the issues that he was having. And so I told my daughter, I was like, it's really important for you to get into a team sport. It's really important for you to have structure. It's really, like, she's very hard-headed like I am, and just like, her father was, very stubborn. And I love her for that. She knows what she wants and she pushes for it. But also, there's the other side of the coin where she doesn't want to do the things that she doesn't want to do. She doesn't want to have schedules. She doesn't want to, have rules and whatever. And so I told her that it's so important to have community for your self-esteem, for your confidence, to achieve your goals. Because when you have a community, you are with other people that are on the same trajectory as you. All of you are working towards the same goal. And so my point with her was she needed to join a team sport. She does gymnastics, she does some other stuff, but like there's not a team that she has. And she used to play volleyball when she was at her other school. And so I signed her up for volleyball again. And I told her, I was like, it's so important to have this team because you're all working towards the same goal. You're all showing up for the same thing. And when you do that, you create connection. You're more likely to achieve your goals in a community than you are on your own. And so that's why having community is so important, because you can be more unreasonable about your healing. You can be more relentless when you have other people that are on that same trajectory as you, that same level as you, and you're giving each other motivation, because again, motivation is all circumstantial. And so when you're constantly with other people that are doing the same things as you and they're experiencing the same things and you're all encouraging one another, your healing will become much more accelerated because you're calibrating to that kind of energy. You're surrounding yourself with that kind of energy, consistent mindset shifts, consistent experiences that are going in the direction that you want to go. And that is the place that we really have to get to. That's why Empowered Academy is such an important piece in so many women's healing journeys, because we do have that constant support. We do have those constant mindset shifts. You are constantly changing your thought processes. You're thinking about things differently. When you hear somebody else talk about something and you're reframing it, you're like, oh yeah, that applies to me too. And that is just so incredibly important, and why I've seen women do in 3 to 6 months what they've been trying to do for years and years and years in therapy. It's so powerful to be able to continue. Like, once you have, of course, when you start something, again, you have that motivation, but it's very easy to fall off. It's very easy to let other things get in the way of your life. But if you have that consistency, if you have that consistent motivation, that accountability, don't you think you'll go so much further? Accountability is so important in the healing space. It's so incredible to have somebody that's got your back, that's reminding you why you're doing what you're doing. Because again, we get apathetic, we get tired, we get worn out, we get discouraged. And so, if this is something that you've been struggling with in your life, if you have been that fly that's hitting the head against the wall and you're really not making the progress that you want to make, or maybe you've made some progress, but you're not where you want to be yet, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to reach out to me and learn more about Empowered Academy. Empowered Academy is a masterpiece. It's one of the best things that I have created that has allowed so many women to heal from past trauma and break the toxic relationship cycle and really feel whole and complete on their own and be able to attract the life and the love that they desire. I've seen it time and time again. There's so much proof there. There's so much evidence that it works, because what we do is we go back to the scenes of the original wound and we heal and soothe that inner child on that subconscious level. And we start to rebuild our relationship with ourselves. We start to build our self-esteem, our self-worth, our self-love. We start to, again, heal that relationship within ourselves, what we believe that we're worthy of. We start to set boundaries. We start to be unapologetic about who we are and what we bring to the table. And we're making those consistent shifts so it doesn't only last for a little bit. If you do that for 3 to 6 months, your life will change, because it will now become a new pattern for you. It will now become a new way of being in the world for you. It'll become a part of you. That's what that does. When you have those constant shifts, you have that in between session support between myself and my client success coach, who we're constantly giving accountability, encouragement, support. You're also getting group coaching calls, and you're also getting a course with step-by-step instruction on how to break free of the toxic relationship cycle. If you have all of those things, if you're in this community, if you have that type of support, your life is going to change. But you also have to be relentless about it. You have to show up. You have to be the person and take the action of the person that you're wanting to be. And so if you feel like you've been stuck, if you feel like you're like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to do this thing for so long and I'm not where I want to be, maybe I've made little progress, maybe I've made a lot of progress, but I just still can't break the same cycle that I've been in. Maybe you're still attracting the same types of emotionally unavailable people. Maybe you're not having the relationship that with yourself that you're wanting to have. Reach out to me, go ahead and DM me, and we can see if Empowered Academy would be a good fit for you. But again, like, this is what's going to make a difference in your life, is being relentless about your healing, being unreasonable, showing up when you don't want to show up, getting the accountability that you need. Even if it's not with me, I highly recommend getting somebody who can be there for you, that can help you be consistent in the changes that you're trying to make, because it will be life-changing for you. You will do more in a short amount of time that you've been trying to do in the years that you've been on your healing journey, just by being consistent. So if you feel like this resonated with you, reach out to me. If you want to share what your breakthroughs were during this this live, or you have something to say, just type it in the comments. But I'm really excited to hear more from all of you. All right, have a great day, everyone.